Vikings, Raiders of the North. Hello there. Today we are embarking on a journey through the ages to reach the untamed coasts of Scandinavia, rather than some idyllic tropical destination. Get ready to experience the world of the Vikings, those fabled explorers, raiders, and let's face it, pretty damn formidable warriors who ruled the North Sea for centuries. Fasten your seatbelts. As we'll see later, Vikings were more than just a group of men, wearing helmets adorned with horns and sporting long beards, though those things weren't real. They were a sophisticated society with a wealth of cultural traditions, expert sailors, and an unusual style of warfare. Around the 8th century AD, Scandinavia was where Viking culture first emerged. This area, which included what is now Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, had harsh coastlines, frigid winters, and little arable land. Their remarkable shipbuilding abilities and maritime prowess were probably influenced by these reasons. The dawn of the Viking Age. Many people believe that 793 AD marks the symbolic beginning of the Viking Age. The notorious invasion of the northeastern English abbey of Lindisfarne serves as a reminder of this. Monasteries were popular targets for these early assaults because of their concentrated wealth and frequently remote settings. But it's crucial to keep in mind that not every Viking was a raider. Many were expert craftspeople who made exquisite jewelry, swords, and common household equipment out of bone, wood, and metal. They established vast trade lines throughout Europe and beyond. They were also skilled traders. Amber, furs, and slaves were carried south by Viking traders, who also brought luxury items like wine, silver, and spices back with them. Their networks of trade reached as far south as the Islamic world and as far east as the Byzantine Empire. Settlement and Renaissance, propelled by a confluence of elements such as demographic increase, an insatiable curiosity for exploration, and political unrest in Europe. The Vikings commenced an era of astounding growth. They were able to cross dangerous waters and discover unexplored areas, thanks to their longships' modest drafts and distinctive steering designs. Westward bound, the first European settlers in North America were the Vikings. Leif Erikson, the son of Eric the Red, is said to have arrived in Newfoundland in the year 1000 AD and named it Vinland. Despite the brief existence of their settlements in North America, they leave archaeological evidence of early transatlantic communication. Eastward ho! Viking explorers also explored Russia's extensive river network, which led them eastward. After establishing trade links with the local Slavic populations, they went on to form Kievan Rus, a powerful empire headquartered around modern-day Kiev, Ukraine. The crucible of conflict. In addition to being expert dealers and negotiators, the Vikings were also fearsome fighters. Their raiding strategies were frequently fast and vicious. They took advantage of political disputes between kingdoms in Europe to establish themselves as mercenaries or as rulers in some regions, exploiting flaws in the political systems of the continent. Technological innovation. The Vikings picked things up quickly and adjusted. They quickly added captured equipment and strategies to their own toolkit. For example, they improved their own shipbuilding techniques by using seized longships and borrowed chainmail armor from the Franks. The Viking legacy. By the 11th century AD, the Viking Age was gradually coming to an end. This was caused by a number of circumstances, such as the development of powerful, centralized kingdoms throughout Europe, the Christianization of Scandinavia, and internal political shifts within Viking societies. However, the influence of the Vikings is still felt today. Their influence can be observed in place names across North America and Europe. The vivid oral tradition of the Vikings, as shown in the Icelandic sagas, provides an important context for understanding their history and culture. These sagas offer a glimpse into their worldview and societal institutions, albeit not totally real. Beyond being warriors and raiders, the Vikings were more. They were global travelers, traders, and accomplished craftspeople who made a lasting impression. Even now, their exceptional sailing abilities and adventurous attitude captivate our attention. Born of the sea, Viking ships and navigation. Their amazing ships were the secret to the Vikings' success. These longships were engineering marvels of the sea. Imagine streamlined, lightweight boats that are intended to be both quick and agile. A vital advantage for attacking inland cities was that longships could cross narrow rivers, hug the coastline, and even be dragged overland on rollers, unlike their cumbersome Mediterranean equivalents. The Vikings were able to attack unexpectedly because of these technological marvels. They seemed to materialize out of nowhere and disappear just as fast. Their sense of direction was similarly amazing. The Vikings traveled great distances by using the sun, stars, and their understanding of currents. Imagine them as the Google Maps of the early Middle Ages, where you could find locations based on natural occurrences like bird behavior or sky color. Centuries before Columbus, they were able to travel across the North Atlantic and reach Iceland, Greenland, and even the coast of North America thanks to their expertise. Art of war, Viking tactics and weaponry. But the Vikings were formidable combatants when the chips were down. They frequently combined intellect with brutal force in their methods. They used a shield wall formation, but it was different from that of other European fighters. Imagine an almost impenetrable wall of overlapping shields, able to withstand a barrage of arrows or sword attacks. The axe was their weapon of choice because it was a multi-purpose weapon that could be pushed or chopped. They also employed bows and arrows with lethal accuracy for ranged combat, in addition to swords, spears, and javelins. Raiding and trading, a way of life. The Vikings are today most recognized for their raids. Imagine a group of ferocious warriors launching a torrent of bloodshed and looting onto a community by the sea. These raids were not haphazard acts of piracy, despite their brutality. The Vikings hunted for slaves, livestock, and precious resources, in addition to gold and silver in affluent villages, monasteries, and trading hubs. But the Vikings were more than just marauders. In addition, they were expert traders who had extensive networks throughout Europe and beyond. Their longships were important participants in early medieval commerce, transporting furs, amber, walrus ivory, and other products in addition to weapons. The Viking diaspora, a lasting impact. There was more to the Viking Age than merely pillaging and plundering. It was a time of trade, exploration, and cross-cultural interaction. From Scandinavia, Viking settlements extended to Russia, Ireland, and possibly North America. Throughout Europe, their impact can be observed in place names, languages, and even artistic styles. Thus, bear in mind that the Vikings were more than simply marauders the next time you see an image of a stoic warrior with a flowing beard. They were traders and adventurers who made an indelible impression on history. Beyond the horns, Viking culture and legacy. Let's bust some myths now. Those helmets with horns? Never a true item, probably the result of a creative license taken or mistaken for ceremonial clothing. There is archaeological evidence that the Vikings valued personal hygiene, as seen by their regular bathing and grooming routines. In addition, they led a vibrant cultural life despite being formidable fighters. They were poets and skilled storytellers who honored their gods and heroes in sagas. Epic tales that were passed down through the ages. Archaeological artifacts attest to their exceptional workmanship, which included exquisite jewelry making, metalworking, and woodworking abilities. The crucible of war, Viking warfare. In context, unquestionably, Viking invasions were cruel. But in order to comprehend their combat style, we must take into account the larger context of early medieval warfare. Speed, agility, and an emphasis on shock tactics were hallmarks of Viking warfare, in contrast to the heavily armored knights of later ages. A world of feud and fury, warfare in early medieval Europe. Europe was a dispersed region in the centuries preceding the Vikings. There was a perpetual fight for domination and a dispersed system of kingdoms. Warfare was a vicious activity that frequently involved raids, ambushes, and capturing key positions. Other societies, like the Franks and Anglo-Saxons, also depended on rapid attacks and mobile troops, much like the Vikings did. Imagine a society in which vengeance was frequently used to settle conflicts and annex new territory, and loyalty was frequently shown to a local lord rather than a centralized monarch. Raiding for glory and gain, the motivations of Viking warriors. Greed was not the only motivation behind Viking attack. In Viking civilization, military skill was a key factor in determining one's social standing. A victorious raid established a warrior's reputation in his community and brought prestige and honor in addition to wealth. Furthermore, the Viking economies relied heavily on the spoils of war, including animals, slaves, and valuable metals, which fueled trade and supported their towns. Adapting to the enemy. Viking warfare evolves, but Viking strategy was dynamic. They modified their tactics in response to opposition. They used siege techniques, breaking down walls with siege engines and siege towers when confronted with heavily fortified towns or ports under siege. The Vikings were not beyond using psychological warfare as a tactic. Their reputation for fearsomeness preceded them, and communities may occasionally be forced into submission just by the prospect of a raid. Hit and run tactics, striking fear and disrupting economies. Viking raids were frequently carried out in an instant. They could surprise coastal communities by traveling via shallow rivers on their longships. Just picture the fear that a quiet community would have experienced upon seeing a fleet of longships suddenly materialize on the horizon. The Vikings would charge in, overpowering opposing forces and taking whatever they could before vanishing as fast as they had appeared. In addition to maximizing treasure, this hit-and-run strategy reduced Viking casualties. Vikings may also damage their opponents and destabilize competing economies by attacking wealthy monasteries and interfering with trade routes. The legacy of Viking warfare, a brutal yet innovative approach. There is no denying the influence of Viking warfare on European history. They compelled European nations to fortify themselves and devise fresh military plans. Their skills in seafaring and shipbuilding had a lasting impact on naval warfare for decades to come. Despite the brutality of their raids, they helped to shape trade networks and promote cross-cultural interchange throughout Europe. Thus, the next time you hear the name Viking, keep in mind that they were a sophisticated, adaptive culture that made a lasting impact on the battlefield and beyond, in addition to being a formidable raiding group.